Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Friends, tonight our topic for this Dhamma talk is a question. The question is, are there four truths in the world? Are there four truths in the world? The simple answer is no. Truth should be one. Truth should be common to all beings in the whole universe. Suppose if we say that Buddha is truth, Buddha is truth only for Buddhists. If we say God is truth only for Christians or Catholics. If we say Brahma is truth, that is truth only for Hindus. If you say Allah is truth, that is truth only for Islamic people, not common, not for all. Truth should be truth for not only for humans, but all beings. Truth should be one, should be common to all beings in the whole universe. So what is that one truth? Truth for all beings. That is nothing but dissatisfaction, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. Dukkha is the truth that the Buddha rediscovered. It's common to all beings, wherever beings are. They have to face dukkha. They have to face dissatisfaction, suffering. Then why there are four truths? We talk about four noble truths. They are called noble even. Why noble? They are called noble because the noblest one, the Buddha, rediscovered these four truths. Then what are four truths? Not four truths, but four facets of truth. Four sides of the truth. Whenever you say this, whenever we study the four truths, we have to say that dissatisfaction, the cause of dissatisfaction, the cessation of dissatisfaction, and the path leading to the cessation of dissatisfaction. You see the connection? Dissatisfaction. That is what is the connection. Only one, but four facets, four sides of the same truth. That is the Four Noble Truths. This is what is called the central teaching of the Buddha. According to the aggregate discourse from the connected discourses of the Buddha, addressing the monks, Buddha said, what bhikkhus is the noble truth of suffering? dissatisfaction, whatever the term you use, there are different terms like dissatisfaction, suffering, unsatisfactoriness, discomfort, like that. You can use these words, different words, though Buddha used the term dukkha. So what is dukkha? It should be said that the 5 aggregates subject to clinging, that is dukkha. 5 aggregates subject, affected by clinging. Simply 5 aggregates are not dukkha. 5 aggregates affected by clinging, subject to clinging. It is to be understood clearly. So what are 5? The form aggregate subject to clinging, the feeling aggregate subject to clinging, the perception aggregate subject to clinging, the volitional formations aggregate subject to clinging, and the consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. These 5 are called 5 aggregates affected or subject to clinging, affected by clinging. So that means all beings have 5 aggregates. That is to be understood clearly. All beings have 5 aggregates. Mistakenly, people think 5 aggregates means this body. This body is not 5 aggregates. If this body is 5 aggregates, this body, only humans and animals have this body, which is composed with 4 elements. But there are many beings, invisible beings, those who have no such form, such body like ours, like devas, brahmas, hungry ghosts. They have no such body. Their bodies are not born but manifesting. They are manifesting. They appear and disappear. Not like humans or animals. We have to understand that dukkha is all over. Unsatisfactoriness, dissatisfaction is all over the world. All beings have these 5 aggregates, and where there are 5 aggregates, there is dukkha, there is unsatisfactoriness. Therefore the Buddha said, because Buddha explained what these four noble truths. 4 noble truths. The noble truth of suffering, the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, the noble truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Those are the four facets of truth, 4 sides of truth. Then the Buddha said, what because is the noble truth of suffering? It should be said, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. Again. And the cause, what is the cause? What is the origin of suffering? It is this craving, you see. It is this craving that leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. That is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence, extermination. That is the noble truth of the origin of suffering, the cause of suffering. Then the Buddha said the cessation. What is the cessation of suffering? It is the remainderless fading away and cessation of that same craving, the giving up and relinquishing of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. This is called the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Then the way, the path leading to the cessation of suffering. It is this noble eightfold path, that is right view, right thoughts, right speech, right actions, right livelihood, right efforts, right mindfulness, and right concentration. That is what is called noble eightfold path. That is the path. That is the way. That is the way to practice, develop. That is the way to develop. So, from where should we understand this? From the book? From the library? Or reading outside? No. These, friends, these are to be understood. These are to be realized, not simply understanding. To be realized by ourselves individually, within us. Within us means within these 6 sense bases, not only this physicality. Within the 6 sense bases, they arise and perish. They arise in perishing. They are there. The craving is there in the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. The same craving is to be ceased right there, in the same place. That is how one completely extinguished this fire of craving. That extinguishing itself is called Nibbana. Nibbana, extinguishing of craving, fire. In the Dhammapada, referring the Eightfold Path, the Buddha said, of all paths, the Eightfold Path is the best. Not only the Eightfold Path, further Buddha said, referring to the Four Noble Truths. Of all truths, the Four Noble Truths are the best. Of all things, Dhamma, passionlessness is the best. Of all humans, the seen one, Buddha, is the best. Further he said, walking upon this path, you will make an end of suffering. Having discovered how to pull out the thorn of lust, I make known the path. But you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. Tummehi kichang atappang akhataro tathagata. That is how the Buddha said in Pali. Those meditative ones who tread the path are released from the bonds of Mara. That is the very words of the Buddha. Now, once the Buddha visited a place crossing the river Ganges, close to Patna, the present day Patna, Buddha visited a village named Kotigama, where the Buddha said, bhikkhus. You know, whenever the Buddha addressed the monks, Buddha used the term bhikkhus. Bhikkhus. It is because of not understanding and not penetrating the four noble truths that you and I have roamed and wandered through this lone course of samsara. What for? It is because of not understanding and not penetrating the noble truth of suffering, that you and I have roamed and wandered through this lone course of suffering. Not only the suffering, then the Buddha said the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. It is because of not understanding these four noble truths. We all are wandering in this samsara. What is samsara? Samsara means the cycle of births and deaths. Births and death. Samsara. We are born again and again in 31 realms. It is because of our inclination. It is because of our attachment. Attachment. We leave behind cause. Once we leave behind a cause, we have to reap the results. We reap the results in 31 of the 31 realms. That is what is called existence or samsara. Then what is to be done? The Buddha said, instruction is practice serenity and insight. Practice serenity and insight. But first of all, we have to practice serenity, concentration. That is meditation. Friends, that is why even today, tonight, we practice metta as the serenity meditation, concentration meditation. Then I instructed you to switch to understand the thoughts. Thoughts means aggregates, 5 aggregates. Dukkha. Dukkha arises and perishes all the time in our 6 sense bases. Our mind, our consciousness jumps from one sense to other. Not in a particular order. Just like the Buddha said, just like the monkey jumps from branch to branch, this mind, this consciousness jumps from one sense to the other. Therefore, Buddha's advice is to develop this mind, develop concentration, and understand things as they really are. That is what is called insight. So concentration and insight together, that is the Buddha's technique of meditation. The purpose of meditation is to understand dukkha as dukkha, the cause of dukkha, the cessation of dukkha, and the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. If we are mindful, if we are developing our concentration, we can understand 5 aggregates as suffering. Then we can understand the cause as craving, the cessation of craving, as well as the path, the middle path, the Noble Eightfold Path. In general, what happens to us is that we, all the time, we have discursive thoughts. There are 3 types of discursive thoughts. Discursive thoughts of sensuality, discursive thoughts of ill will, and discursive thoughts of cruelty. All the time we have these thoughts. So the Buddha's advice is to understand these whenever they pop up, whenever they come to our mind through our senses. Only through one sense at a time. Whenever you see the object, we see the object. With the object, we take the image. That image is planted. That image is, we can understand that image as the form in the eye. With the support of light, we see the object, and whenever we see the object, we take that image as a reflection, pratibimba. That is called pratibimba, which is then in the eye. That form is what is called form aggregate. Then we feel that form, not the form out there, but the form that we create, the image that we have taken, just like you take a picture using the camera. Once you take the picture, that image is there in your camera. Just like that, whatever the picture, whatever the form out there, outside, when we take the image, it is there in the eye. Not only the form. Forms are not only through your eyes. Form are there in the ear, which are called form of sound, then form of smell, form of taste, form of tangible, form of mind as mental objects. In such a way, forms are there in the six sense bases. Form is the first thing to appear. Then what happens? We feel it. Then we perceive it. Then we start to think, we evaluate it. So all these four, what are the four? Form, feeling, perception, and volitional formations. These four are detected by our consciousness. That is how these five aggregates arise in the eye, in the ear, in the nose, in the tongue, in the body, and in the mind. These are to be understood by the wise ones. Wise ones. Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha, is for the wise ones. Wise people can understand this. These are not physical friends. All these are mental. Buddha's whole teaching is based on the mind. That is the psychoanalysis taught by the Buddha. Some people start to think discursive thoughts, many different evil thoughts. Buddha's advice is not to thought of such evil, unwholesome thoughts. Buddha said, Bhikkhus, do not reflect in an evil, unwholesome way. Friends, though the Buddha addressed the monks, this is not only for bhikkhus, not only for monks. As I said, I repeatedly have told this, that Buddha taught the Dhamma for the fourfold Sangha. Bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasaka and upasika. For all of us. So the Buddha said, do not reflect in an evil, unwholesome way. What is the evil, unwholesome way? Useless way, unbeneficial way. Unbeneficial way, what is that? People think they want to understand whether this world is eternal. They think the world is eternal. If the world is eternal, they think of it. The world is not eternal. They want to understand whether the world is not eternal. They want to understand the world is finite. Or they want to understand the world is infinite. They want to understand the soul and the body, whether the soul and body are one or the soul and body are two different things. They want to understand whether the Buddha or the Arahants exist after death. Then they want to understand whether the Buddha or Arahant does not exist after death. They want to understand the Buddha both exists and does not exist after death. They want to understand neither exists, the Buddha neither exists nor does not exist after death. They want to understand, they want to understand all these things, 10 different things Buddha kept when these questions were put to the Buddha. Buddha kept silence. These are called unanswered questions. There are 10 unanswered questions. Buddha never wanted to answer these questions. Why? Useless, unbeneficial. This reflection is unbeneficial. Buddha said, this reflection is unbeneficial, irrelevant to the fundamentals of the holy life, and does not lead to revulsion, this enchantment, does not lead to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, and to Nibbana. Irrelevant. That is why such thoughts as wise people should not think of this. Instead, Buddha suggested us to think about unsatisfactoriness. What is called unsatisfactory? What is it? How it comes? What is the origin? What is the cessation? What is the way to cease it? These are the things to be understood. Why? These are very relevant, beneficial, relevant to the fundamentals. Leads to revulsion, disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, peace, direct knowledge, and enlightenment, Nibbana. Once the Buddha said, monks, just like a stick thrown up into the air falls now on its bottom, now on its top, so too as beings, we all beings roam and wander on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. Now they go from this world to the other world, just like a stick thrown to the air. Suppose the stick is thrown to the air, it's coming down at one point, one end, the other end, to the other end. Now they come from the other world to this world. For what reason? Because they have not seen the Four Noble Truths, just like a stick thrown to the air. It's coming from different ends. From this end, from one end this time, the other end other time. Like that, beings, we all beings, at a time we go from this world to other world. Another time, that world to this world. We come from that world to this world. That is the meaning. So, in such a way, we are born again and again in this samsara. In order to understand the difficulty of being born to this human realm, being born as a human is not that easy. It's a rare opportunity. We got this wonderful opportunity. Buddha once delivered a discourse on a blind turtle. Referring to the blind turtle, Buddha said, monks, suppose there is a blind turtle at the bottom of the ocean. It comes to the surface once every 100 years. When the turtle comes to the surface, there's a yolk which is with a single hole. You know, the yolk is what the farmers use to keep on the neck of the bulls. They use the yolk. Normally there are 4 holes in it. But in this particular, Buddha gave the simile of a yolk with a single hole, only one hole there. The purpose of turtle, the blind turtle means it's one-eyed actually, it's one-eyed turtle. It comes to the surface in order to insert its neck to that hole and wants to see the sky, wants to see the moon. That is the purpose of coming all the way from the bottom of the ocean, bottom of the sea, only once every 100 years. Suppose when the turtle comes to the surface, the yolk is on the other way. The hole is not properly matched. Then he loses the opportunity. The turtle loses that opportunity. He can't put its neck to the hole. So, if when the turtle comes to the surface, if the yolk, if it is in the blind eye, the side of the blind eye, then again he can't see that. Buddha said, that might happen. Even that could happen. Even after that would happen. The turtle will insert its neck into the yolk with the single hole. But Buddha said it is not that easy. Here the Buddha said, sooner I say would that blind turtle come into the surface once every 100 years, insert its neck into that yolk with a single hole, than the fool who has gone once to the nether world. That means the hells. Would regain the human state. Regain in human state is not that easy. For what reason? The Buddha said, for what reason? Because there is no conduct guided by the Dhamma. No Dhamma there in the hells. No righteous conduct. No wholesome activity. No meritorious activity. You can't do meritorious deed in such places. Hungry ghost realm or animal realms, hells, nowhere. Here there prevails mutual devouring, the devouring of the weak, eating the weak, devour. For what reason? Because they have not seen the Four Noble Truths. That is why. Therefore, the Buddha's advice is, therefore, bhikkhus, an exertion should be made to understand this is suffering, this is dissatisfaction, this is unsatisfactoriness, this is what is called discomfort. It is to be understood. This is the cause and this is the path. the cessation and the path. The fortunate thing is, friends, if you see one, what happened? One truth, you can see the other three also, because they are interconnected. If you see unsatisfactoriness, if you understand unsatisfactoriness, you can understand the cause. If you can understand the cause, you can understand the cessation. If you can understand the cessation, you can understand the path also. These are interconnected. That is what happened once Venerable Gavampati, when questioned, he said, I have heard this from the Buddha's own lips. Buddha said, as Venerable Gavampati said in this discourse, he says, friends, in the presence of the Buddha, Blessed One, I have heard and learned this, the Buddha's words. Bhikkhus, one who sees suffering also sees the origin of suffering, also sees the cessation of suffering, also sees the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One who sees the origin of suffering also sees suffering, also sees the cessation of suffering, and also sees the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One who sees the cessation of suffering also sees suffering, also sees origin of suffering, and also sees the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One who sees the way leading to the cessation of suffering also sees suffering, also sees origin of suffering, also sees the cessation of suffering. Buddha suggested, when we talk about our friends, relatives, we want to help them, we want to support them, take care of them. The Buddha's suggestion is, whenever you think as compassionated ones, whenever you think of them, whether friends, colleagues, relatives, or kinsmen, or whoever you want to help in different ways, Buddha's suggestion is, help them, teach them, discuss with them, and practice with them these four noble truths. If you have compassion towards them, towards your friends, your relatives, colleagues, whoever, teach these four noble truths. Once the Buddha delivered a discourse named Brahmayu, where the Buddha pointed out clearly why the Buddha is called Buddha. When Brahmayu went to the Buddha, he observed 32 marks of the great man, Mahapurusha Lakshana. Observing this, as he was with suspicion, he was doubt with the 32 marks of the Buddha, where the Buddha said, there is nothing to be doubted. Friend, Buddha said, abhinyayang abhinyatang bhavetabang cha bhavitang pahatabang pahinang me tasma buddhosmi brahmana. Addressing the Brahmin Brahmayu, Buddha said, what is to be comprehended, I comprehended it. What is to be developed, I developed it. What is to be abandoned, I abandoned it. Therefore, Brahmin, I am a Buddha. What is to be comprehended by oneself? dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. What is to be developed? The Noble Eightfold Path. That is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. What is to be abandoned? The cause. That is craving. Once you abandon the cause, you come to the cessation. That is the realization of Nibbana. So friends, this is how we have to understand the central teachings of the Buddha. The most important teaching, the Four Noble Truths. Truth is one. That truth is unsatisfactoriness. That unsatisfactoriness is there because of craving, our desire. We want it. That is the problem. As we want things, we want, I want, like that. We always have the desire, urge, thirst to grasp something. That is the problem. If we grasp anything, that is what is called dukkha. Yada niccang tang dukkhang. If you grasp things as mine, me, or myself, that is what is called dukkha. So the Buddha's teaching is not to grasp things, not to attach, but to practice non-attachment. So let's understand these wonderful teachings of the Buddha. Let's read more and more these wonderful teachings, original teachings of the Buddha, and practice accordingly, so that we all can live happily, peacefully in this society and realize real peace, real happiness of Nibbana. May we all realize real peace, real happiness of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.